All right. Welcome to day two, everybody. Today, we're going to start everything off by going through and kind of brushing a little bit more up on what where we ended off on yesterday, just to make sure everybody's tracking. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. Is that working for everybody?
Yeah, I
I know
got
we
it.
had a few, I know we had a couple of issues yesterday, so I just want to make sure we're good to go. All right. I see thumbs up. All right. Is there anybody that didn't make it? Has there anybody that hasn't gotten their code spaces set up? They haven't checked out the day one video or the Kickstart video or Roger's video for the quick reference to be able to set up code spaces so we can get access to the curriculum? I'm taking that as thumbs up. All right. Does everybody remember how to get into your code spaces from the curriculum, from hamburger menu, code spaces? And then go ahead and launch your code space by
You just,
opening it in browser. I'll hang it right here for a minute.
you just
Hey
press on.
Zach, how you doing? No, this is good. This is
Could
Davey
we,
from Code here. Dude, I'm doing good. It's been crazy little past few weeks here. I got married 3 weeks ago. Yeah, it's been
there we go. All right. Oh, hit
You
the
just,
ellipsis and
oh,
then open in browser. And that right
browser.
there, that should be able to, that'll kick you right back into the loading screen. We don't have to set up the code spaces anymore. We should just be able to kick right in and it should fire off a little bit quicker.
That's cool.
And then once we're in, get rid of my arrows. This will load up for a little bit. I'm going to flip back to, while this is loading, and we're going to flip back to strings. Is there any questions on any of yesterday's information? Anything at all? I know I breezed over the methods pretty quickly and everything, so.
I guess
Uh,
we
I
can
Yeah,
go back to that. Oh, go ahead.
today is my first day. I actually missed yesterday, but I did watch the video. I did watch the pre-recording um from yesterday and tried to grasp as kind of much as I could on my own.
All right, were you able to run the Python code
Yes.
and get everything? Interesting. Let me double check and see what happened here.
Hmm.
Naturally, we know this shouldn't have done that.
Can always come back, but
That is not right.
Know we covered lists in the last class. Will we touch on dictionaries during this class?
We didn't really talk about, we didn't actually cover lists. We kind of mentioned them a little bit in relation to, pretty much in relation to string, and some of the string methods output a list to be able to use that style of collection. That is, let's see here really quick. Lists are going to be more in the ordered data structure. So that's going to be more of tomorrow's kind of lesson. So it is kind of broken up a little bit there. But we will go over list methods and stuff like that. And like, I just want to reiterate that a lot of these methods, that it's not something to just like memorize per se, but understanding that it's a thing. This looks like it's what was doing to you, Derek.
I was about to say.
Oh, she is not happy. Well, there's the preview. There we go. Yeah, so that must have happened to you because it wasn't done loading,
Yeah.
because that's what it acted like here. It caught up, but this is the interesting thing right here. Why
Yeah, you're
it's
not getting that. There it is.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
the
not, it's, yeah,
313
for some
seven.
reason it's running a little slow today. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
How's everybody else's code spaces? Are they popping up? Is it popping up pretty good?
Yes, good on mine.
Okay, maybe I've got something running on my network. It looks like, yeah, we should be good to go here. Yep, this is running. See, yeah, it's still running pip right here. What is pip is like a package installer. So kind of think about it like, oh, your Apple Store or your Microsoft Store or the Google Play Store. But this is specifically for modules for Python. So when you see those pip messages, um, that's what it's doing in the background is it's installing stuff to help make part of the curriculum work. If that makes any sense, just so you guys know what's going on here. So I know we covered string upper, string lower, capitalizing strings, titles. And we do understand that we were not modifying the string. We were creating a new string. We were doing that, correct?
Yep.
Strip. Strip is one that's used quite often because a lot of times you'll get random spaces and sometimes you get dirty data or however you're pulling in your variable when we start dealing with input and stuff like that. And this is a great way to just clean it up so you're dealing with just the straight text that you expect. So this one you might end up using enough to kind of maybe not necessarily memorize, but it'll be one of those things that might be on the tip of your mind. Um, I don't think we covered that find only finds the first occurrence of a word, and this is wrong. What it does is it returns the index number. So this would be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this index would print 7. Let me kick back over here so that we can see. Were there any questions about variables, Booleans, or any of the rest of the pieces too while I'm going through this? There we are. So here you can see the two examples that they're printing the text, and this should have printed text. That's for the strip. And then with the find, right here's the 7. So even though there's another is in here, it finds the first one and stops. You can kind of call that basically like a lazy function. It finds the first spot, it sees the pattern and stops. And that's included if this was, that's just an error. That's what it should be.
So it'd be
Um,
space. It'd be space. Then why it's pulling 7 is because it's the I and is technically the 7th space.
Correct. So, but if I went and I hid is right in the middle of the word, now it gives me where that is. It doesn't, it's lazy. It doesn't care if there's letters to the left or right. It's going to find your exact literal piece here. I hope that helps make a little more sense.
Wait, what did you do there?
I just jammed the letter IS right in the middle of the word Python
How did you get 3 though?
because I changed where is. See right here? The 2
Where?
letters right here. Let me get an arrow on there. I added IS right there.
Oh, okay.
So
Okay.
go ahead and do that, and you'll see that it changes the index. And this kind of helps reinforce that this isn't a real search. This is this is kind of a lazy thing.
Gotcha.
So here we go. Um,
I have a quick question. So like when it where it says index, it says text period find is. So text would be like the
okay,
command.
yeah. I didn't go over that part. So I'm sorry for which URL are you looking for, Alexo? The Code Platoon curriculum? Okay, the link for that for the recordings. Well, the GitHub link and the YouTube channel are 2 different locations. I will paste the GitHub curriculum in really quick. Here's the GitHub curriculum. And I believe this should be the correct, that should be a playlist link into the YouTube channel. All right, so this is one part that I didn't explain. This text right here, okay. Now, we did go over variable assignment, right?
Yeah.
So these are all called string methods, but we're not using these 3 characters, str.
Okay.
But this is a string, and because it's a string, it has string methods.
Okay.
So what this means is basically anything we're using text here is the string variable name.
Understood.
And because it's a string variable, let me pull up my IDE really quick.
That's identifying like the string, obviously, I'm assuming.
So I'm pulling up my IDE so that we can see this pop up. When I go text dot, you see everything that pops out right here?
Yeah.
Okay, that's the methods that we're covering are these pieces are these right here. You see the capitalized, the count, ends with, find. These are all pieces that now that Python knows that this is a string, calling a method you use by that little dot. So this is a method is like, think of it like it's like a sub function. It's the things that the string can do, if that makes sense.
Sure.
And we we want to do we want to get access to those things by putting that dot, and you could see the IDE or the code editor switches and starts listing, these are all the things that I know you can do. And this is a scroll bar, so there's a lot.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why I was showing this example yesterday when I put this in here, and this is just another function. All right, but what it does is it lists all of the things that a string can do.
Oh, okay. I see what you did.
What I'm getting at here is there's many different ways to get access to this information.
Uh-huh.
And what I'm using here is the built-in pieces of Python. So all of this documentation is coming from inside Python. And the
Of
reason
what?
why I pulled this in, excuse me, sorry.
Just so all that documentation is coming from within Python, and
Yes.
then when you're pulling that in order to see like what you're able to do with that string, that's like basically, I guess what I'm trying to get after. That's what Python's able to do with that string.
Yes, yes. This help function breaks all the information out even more. So now you actually have some text saying, okay, this is what string does. Okay. And then down here you have more explanations, a more verbose explanation of the pieces that I got to with that dir command. But if I go one step further and let's say I want to do help string, and just like we were talking about, I want to access methods, you see this pop back up, right? So if I
Yeah.
click find and then I run this, now it's telling me how the find function works, the find method works. This is the built-in documentation, and this is just one of the ways to find the documentation. I'm going to show you another way in a couple minutes. But I know I didn't really explain. Now, I didn't use text here. I used str for the help function. Everybody see that?
Yeah.
Because this applies to all strings.
Okay.
I'm curious. I might be able to. I
So if
think.
you put in text where str is, would that identify the singular string that you have?
Well, I'm going to run. So, okay. So you can actually use your variable. It knows that it's a string
Because
because
you're
it's been declared
declaring
up
it.
here. Yes.
Yeah.
So this could still work. You could still use it to kind of explore. Now, I understand this can become cumbersome, and there are web pages to be able to find this stuff.
Gotcha. I, I
So
I understand how that works. My next question, and I know it's going to be kind of like a rough answer, is like, where would you have to like kind of use that?
use the functions themselves.
Yeah, well, like when you declare that string, like how we're doing. Let me get back over here
Okay, which one are we
to.
back
So
in?
like with string find. So
Mhm.
like once you've declared like text equals Python is a powerful language, Python is fun. Like to text and find is like, I guess I'm curious as to like what situation you would have to like be utilizing this in, because I understand like how to do it, but like
Um,
my
let's say
mind's going to
you're
like,
looking for a pattern. You're looking to see if this pattern is in the string, if it just happens anywhere. Because I'm gonna, yeah, this doesn't do the pop-up. One of the pieces of information, and I hit it. Okay, so if I go, there's another piece of information. You see this right here? This last line, it says it returns -1 on failure, or it'll return a 0 if it doesn't find it. So if you're looking for, basically, you're looking for any result. No, zero is the first index. Okay.
yeah,
So if it doesn't find it, it returns -1.
because it didn't
So,
find it.
right. So you can test if is not in here at all. So if I remove is completely, and then I run this, let me comment out the help. And now it's -1 because it's not
Gotcha.
in there. So you
Yeah.
could use that as a lazy way or it's a fast way to search stuff because it's very lazy. And if you don't need anything more than that, then there's no reason to make it any more complicated.
So to bring it full circle for me, so like for example, like if it just if is was creating a problem in the programming for some reason, this would probably be the best way to find how many is there are, so you could go through and
Well,
kind of get rid of
this
it
is
or resolve that.
this is to find if it's in there and where it is.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
one of the two. So if it's finding where it is and is like creating an issue for the program, then you can go back in and it obviously identify where all of it is and like correct it.
Yeah, you could use it to replace things. You could build out complicated
I get
logic
it.
to do these things. But yeah. Um, but I think the big key that I wanted to kind of make sure I didn't gloss over this time was the fact that this text and this str are the same thing. Because and what makes that is when we declared this a string by putting all this in here.
And the parentheses is what creates the string.
The quotes.
Yeah, quotes, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Because even this right here, this is a string right here too.
Yeah, gotcha.
So if we tried to put anything else in there that wasn't a string, then the method would fail
Understood.
because we're giving it something that it doesn't expect. It doesn't know how to deal with it.
Got it.
Um, the count that counts non-overlapping occurrences. So this looks for Python specifically. So it counts the two iterations of Python and tells you you've got two.
Gotcha.
Replace, I mean, a lot of these, the naming is kind of self-explanatory.
Yeah, I remember this. And like now that I got that first part, all this kind of makes sense as to like what it would be used for.
Yeah, a lot of times you'll know it's a thing and then you've run into a use case or you've got a problem you're trying to figure out, so you start exploring using the various documentation tools and see what's in there.
Gotcha.
So on that note, there's a site called W3 Schools, and I believe, yeah, it should be the first one. When you jump into there, it gives you a few different options. What you want to do is you want to jump to the reference, and it'll give you the full Python reference, and you can chase down things a multitude of different ways. So like here's your string methods, and there's a lot of them. We're only covering a little bit, and they have their own uses. Like we covered strip, but there's a left strip and a right strip. So if you only want to clear stuff on one side or the other of the string, then you could focus that way. So there's some nuanced things here. A lot of times I've never needed anything more than just strip.
Yeah,
Because I mean, run it once and you know both sides are clean.
I get it.
Is alpha, is numeric. That's one of the nice things about some of these methods is the method kind of gives you a really good clue of what's going on. And as I said, I encourage clicking and running these things because you see how this is giving you a true. So this method is basically it's returning a Boolean. It's either numeric or it's not. There's no in between, right? Is alpha num? Looks for both numbers and letters, checks for lowercase, checks for uppercase. Now, we did start covering interpolated strings a bit, didn't we?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Anybody have any questions on those? Me personally, these are my favorite. It doesn't matter what language it is. I prefer using interpolated strings because it kind of puts everything, it puts the formatting right there and it makes it easier to read what you're trying to do while you're moving through it. But there are multiple ways to do this um, same kind of formatting. So you can also do,
So interpolated strings could like this is typically what you would use like if you were programming for like the entrance to a website and like welcoming somebody or like welcoming a user back.
yeah, that's one of the use cases, but um, we're going to print greeting because I didn't put, there's another one that's a dot format. I just offhand I can't remember how you drop that in there. I know there's a format which you can specify whether to add spaces after these commas, but it starts. Yeah, that's not going to give me any help. It starts making it look more complicated when you start kind of chaining it out to me. And a lot of times this comes down to personal preference, but the key is being consistent. So if you're using interpolated strings, you don't want to bounce between these two methods. Does
Kinda
that
wanna
make
stick
sense?
to- yeah, you kind of want to stick to one, whatever is better for you.
Because you're writing, not only writing code to make the computer run your program, but you're also writing code so that other people can read it.
Yeah.
Gonna see if this gets rid of the modified. We did cover escape sequence. Does anybody have any questions on those?
I don't really remember the escape sequence. Escape sequence allows you.
I think the primary use we were talking about was being able to put quotes inside strings and stuff, but you can. All right, thanks for the confirmation, Josh. The new line so that it gets, when we run this, it puts the single text here to be able to put the quotes around this line right here. You don't know why which quotes were added, Josh. Could you please explain? Josh is asking why quotes were added, so I want to kind of detail that and then I can explain just in case anybody else has the same question. And these, okay, so the reason why these are in there, this is for demonstration purposes, but when you run this, you see that the quotes are part of escape sequences are for putting in special characters. So if I get rid of this is an escape sequence. So if I get rid of that, now the new line is gone. Now this is on one line. If I get rid of these, it's going to give me an error. Because if I get rid of this escape character, then my string is closed here and the rest of this Python doesn't know what to do with. Yes, the slash is an escape character. You're escaping something. And that's why it's turning red, is that's the IDE telling you that you're using an escape sequence so that it means something. If you see the slash T's here, yes, slash, it needs to have both the slash and the quotation to be able to actually print the quotation. Oh, I don't want that. The extra spacing -T is right here. It's a tab. So right there's T, and right there is N.
Gotcha.
So what this is going to do is it's going to snap this text to the closest tab break. So on that note, think of when you're working in like Google Docs, Microsoft Word, or whatever your favorite word processor is, when you're hitting tab, there's predetermined tab breaks in a document. So where you would use this is kind of trying to line up text in columns if you were trying to make like a column table this way.
Makes sense.
Yeah, you could use the tab sequence for starting a new paragraph. A lot of time when you're dealing with console programming and stuff of this nature, it tends to it tends to focus a lot around making pretty text tables so that they're nice and easy to read.
So when you do this command, the /n and then slash again, that's creating just a new line
Mhm.
of texts.
So I could also, if I went and I declared these two as two different string variables, I could print on two lines with two print statements. But in this case, I'm using one print statement and one variable. So as we go back to the concept that we talked
Wait,
about with,
I'm sorry. Say that again one more time.
so this is printing on two lines, correct?
Yeah,
Or three
three.
lines. I apologize. Yeah, because there's, so I could have made three variables, three separate print statements and gotten the same result. But that's a lot more typing.
Yeah. Okay, I get it.
So sometimes you just want to embed things in. It really depends. It really depends on what you're trying to do. And this is just as a demonstration that this is possible. And there's a lot more escape sequences. These are just, I'd say these are the most common that you'll probably end up seeing.
And what is the I'm sorry, I don't know the verbiage for it, but like when you found with the string what the string was able to do, what is that command that you're able to find what like this is able to do? Is it
Okay,
is
so
it the same?
here we go. Sorry, I like pulling my IDE over because the reason why I like doing it this way is because this
So just help
is
simply.
it's a big space so you can see all of the output and I'm not trying to cram things in. So help gives you the verbose information. So if I
Gotcha.
run help here, it gives me this big, nice, pretty description. Okay. If I use this dir, and that has to be surrounded with a print statement. That's the two major differences. It lists all of those things that I can get help with.
Gotcha. That's what I was curious about. Like
So
help give you the full example of it,
that's
and then dir is like the
this is
shorter.
kind of like your glossary
Yeah.
in the back of the book to be able to find, okay, I see this Z fill as a thing. What does it do? So I can go,
Run help and it'll give you what zfill would do.
yep,
Yeah.
but chained with the period here.
Okay.
And then I get specifically what the documentation says it's going to do.
Zeros on the left. No field for the given width. Okay.
And that's just one of the methods of looking things up. And why? Hold on. I need to. There we go. What I got to do is I got to put it over on a screen that I don't have to hit special characters and key sequences to find. And if you prefer going through and searching through a web page, that's what W3 Schools is good for. So you can also go find that same zfill method. And then they have a few other things. So there are a few different ways to kind of add more to the documentation, or sometimes the amount of stuff they can give you might become an overload. They might give you a lot of stuff and you're just looking for a little bit. So I'd encourage you to look at the different ways to pull the help and just kind of figure out what works best for you. Because this is obvious. This is definitely going to be um, a personal preference kind of thing.
Gotcha.
And like I said before, that help function is the same information that when I highlight over it, except the stuff on top is the technical stuff.
Gotcha.
There's another way that you can use the full-blown editor to go in and find the code definitions and stuff, but that might really hit a lot of overload. And yeah, so this is the reason why we use Jupyter notebooks. Is notice how this opened up another tab. Now I'm starting to get a bit messy up here. I don't have my documentation anymore. All I have is the code here and that.
Yeah.
So this is this is a nice handy tool that where we can start playing with the stuff right in here. So I highly encourage doing that. And when you do that stuff, it saves to your code space. So you don't have to worry about affecting the main code platoon curriculum for this. That's pretty well protected. So you can't actually push any of your changes into that. So you can't actually modify it. So one other thing that I forgot to recommend is you can actually click over here, do a new file, and you could do a practice.py. Python files end in .py, so it helps the interpreter know that you've got a Python file here. And then you can
start running your own.
Yep, you can just do it right there. What you do here, your play button is over here on the right.
Just go through hello. Yeah.
When you run it, it'll show up in the terminal down here.
Gotcha.
Peter, you're asking how to access Jupyter notebooks. Did you go through the setup instructions yet to be able to get set up with code spaces?
I'm sorry, this is actually my first day and I'm technically late, so I really apologize.
No worries. If you wouldn't mind, we've done 2 recordings and Roger's done a recording. We've got plenty of information, and Roger's recording might be the fastest because it's about 2 minutes long. You should be able to go through that, and it shows you how to get this code space set up where we're running the curriculum.
Let me guess, that's on the Slack.
Yes, that's in Slack under the bookmarks.
Yeah, for some reason, still having problems to get on to access Slack.
Okay.
I know I spoke to Danny about it.
You
and
can
I saw
also, okay, so there's a YouTube video. There's a YouTube playlist that I pasted into the chat here. Can you see that or no? Into the Slack chat or the Zoom chat, I apologize.
I'm in the Zoom chat, maybe it's all the way in the back. No. I just got in like 10 minutes ago. I'm sorry.
Okay, so let me repaste that. I can never remember if Zoom gives you access. That link that I just pasted in there, that should get you to YouTube, and
Yeah,
that should
okay.
get you, and the instructions are inside there. Do you have the repo link? The GitHub repository link?
No, I don't.
Okay, so that was in Slack too, but right there that is. And to set this up, you're going to have to set it to be able to get access. You're going to have to sign up for a free GitHub account. That's
I do.
extremely easy. Yeah. So once you're logged into your GitHub account, you want to click that Code Platoon repo, and then you can open up another tab or something to be able to check out the video, and it'll walk you through getting the code spaces up and running for you. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no
How
problem.
about that?
No worries. But this is another thing that I highly encourage. Build a practice file. Throw the things that you can think of into here without having all the documentation in your face. And this is one of the ways you can start working with kind of getting familiar with stuff. And
I think
that's
where I
where
would
that
have problems with this is like building enough stuff in here so I'd be able to do exactly what was in lesson 1.
well, you don't have to do exactly what's in there. Just fiddle a little bit. And that's where
Yeah.
that help function comes in handy. Is what I really like about the help function is I can look at the documentation and not leave the code editor.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't believe, yeah, see, the difference is with the web version, you see how you don't get the pop-up when I hover over print.
I kind of have a silly question. So, like, when you're in this, or like you're in a real coding situation where you're creating, when you're creating, and like, let's say you called help on this, but this is in like the, I guess the real thing that like for your programming that you were doing, would that all that help information then be inputted into your program, or does it
It's
understand that it's just help and like it will disappear when the program is fully
it's
created?
when you're running the help stuff, um, if you're gonna run a help, it's just best practice, make another file and just run that inside the other file.
Okay.
Because then you
Okay.
just delete the file and you're done with it. Nobody's the wiser because you haven't uploaded it anywhere. You just used it as a quick guide. And then, yes, you can split
Understood.
screens too.
Yeah, for sure.
So, uh, no, there was a quick key for this, but you can't. Okay, so there's an open to the side when you right click it. So I'm right clicking to get a context menu. It may ask you for permission to do that, but if I open it to the side, now I have a side by side view.
Gotcha.
So you could easily push the practice over here and just like, is it Laram or Laram?
It's Laramie, like Jeremy with an L.
Oh, I sorry, I didn't mean to butcher that.
Are you
But
good?
yeah, that's a very good point that you could always throw that stuff right here. And it's helpful if you want to split the two
The
pieces
side by
across.
side, I think, is the
Yep.
best thing. That's what
And
I
then
was
you
just
could still
curious
run
about.
that and you could still run through your code.
Gotcha.
Now, did anybody try any of the exercises last night or over the past 2 days?
From
And
that first day, I was so overwhelmed I didn't even get into it. But like now that we talked, I kind of got the better of it, and I'm getting the understanding more solidly now.
okay, good.
I tried
Um,
the restaurant bill exercise, and I was running into a problem with the converting the tip into like a percentage. That's not, and I
converting
couldn't
the
figure
tip
that one out.
into a percentage. Where is the
Yeah,
exercise? Do you remember where the exercise was, where I can get to it quickly?
it's underneath the strings, the escape sequences in the none type.
Okay, so it's in the main doc. Okay. Was it under
You're looking at it
oh,
right
it
there.
was the first. Wow. Okay,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
what issue were you running into?
So, I took all the inputs, but I was trying to, I guess it's more of a math problem. When asking for like an input for the tip, the exercise is asking for it in a tip percentage versus like a tip amount.
Hmm.
And so I didn't know how to go about the problem of asking for an input and that being in a percentage. I think that has to do with um, converting the integer into like a percentage using those f functions, but I couldn't figure it out.
Were you trying to use the percent sign? Because
Does
let's
the
see here.
percent sign automatically change it to a percentage value?
No, it doesn't. So they're explaining that this is tip percentage right here. So this is 15%. So apply a tip to the post tax. So what we would do is we would go equals.
Okay, I think I realized why I was making it more complicated for myself. I was trying to ask the user for an input, like if you were to
Oh, yeah, we haven't covered that. So
Yeah, and so I was trying to figure out how to take the user input and change that to a percentage, and I couldn't figure
yeah.
out how to do
So
that. But I realize if you just put it in normally, I get that part.
I believe that should be what we're looking for right there. I think that's what they were focusing on was getting those nested parentheses in there to be able to make sure that you're adding that. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think I was just making it more complicated for myself.
Oh,
Can you run this? I'm curious as to what it would look like.
I'm gonna do something different here, something they didn't cover.
What does the F mean?
That is what we call in Python, they call them F strings, but that's a interpolated string. Um, Trying to remember if I've got this right. No, that's still a string. See, I have to reference stuff too sometimes. We did not cover this, so that's what I was looking for. Oh, yeah, it was right before. So I was right. I was just confused. So what I was doing was I was trying to truncate the rest of these decimals. And this is why I like interpolated strings, because it's all still part of the string right here.
Two F.
It's
Damn.
that colon point two F is telling that I want it formatted with only two decimal places. Right here's the output. Here's the comparison between the two.
399 or
So
62.
instead of having a non-monetary number like this,
Hmm.
we're dealing with currency. So we
So you're rounding.
format it.
You're rounding to the two,
Yes, I believe this will round. I'm not 100%, but I believe it will round.
or you're eliminating.
No,
Yeah.
reading the instructions is it's just truncating. So no, it's not rounding, it just drops it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's just
Yeah.
dropping the.
Yep, just
Yeah.
like when we were talking about with the int where it just dropped it right off and it's good to go.
Okay.
These are things, there's many different ways to format a string, but I feel like my recommendation is the interpolated string where you start pushing the code inside these curly brackets. Just kind of, it makes more sense to me. And it's a more of a modern feature of languages.
So what this created is it just added the bill plus the tax plus the tip and gave you that 63.90.
Yes.
Okay. Because the tip was already in percentage with the
Yes.
50.
This is it. That's where we have to. So this is going to be a major thing about
I would have overthought that too.
it's a major thing about reading the problem. And because they said tip percentage right here,
Yeah.
so that's telling us that this is a tip percent. That's one
Yeah.
of those things that we need to try to clarify. Is like, is that the tip amount they're putting in, or is that the tip percentage? Because And this is where it kind of gets, this is where naming variables becomes important, because if you were just looking at this with no comment here, there's two different assumptions you could come out with it.
Yeah, it's either you need to convert it or that's the percentage.
Mm-hmm. So it's like, what math do I have to do here?
Yeah, I definitely would have overthought this too. I totally get that.
All right. So are there any other exercise questions? Was that helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, I encourage going through the exercises, going through the main goal here is to get the practice.
DJ, I got a quick question.
Go for it.
So when we get those type of problems, right, is there some type of beginner way of thinking of how we need to format that? Like, because I looked up, I had ChatGPT help me, and it did a good job of like formatting how we need to approach a question. Like, okay, what is it asking? What do we need to do? But if there is there something that you can give to kind of help
It's
us? Because like we were saying, I would probably overthink it, but if there's some kind of a format that we could have to just, okay, what do we, you know what I mean? When we try to figure out, do we do a
yeah.
print? Yeah.
Um, I'm gonna try to summarize a document, but let me make a note, because this will actually help you guys out a lot. There's a document that helps with problem solving that I had from a course I was taking. I'll definitely kind of share that information with you for helping break down a lot of things. Let me make a note really quick. Because they basically, no, I got 6390. Um, oh, that was the pre-tax total. Yes, I put the post-tax total in there. So that was wrong. Thank you for pointing that out. So that is the bill plus the bill times the tip plus the tax. 6389.
Oh,
Let me add parentheses. I'm going to add parentheses to make sure. 6389, I believe.
how was it wrong the first time? How is it off by 2 cents? Or not even 2 cents?
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I believe this should be, yeah, you want the bill, and the tip is the tip percentage, which is already in percentage format. Multiply that by the bill. So your subtotal would be bill times tip. And if we push this into here, no, this is tip amount. Oh, I wish I had to refactor right here.
All right, I'm confused now.
I'm naming the variable wrong. Where is the rename? There we go, rename. So it should be bill plus the tip total. Your tip total. So it should be $8.32. Now, see, I believe that's a dot format. Yeah, because you want to add the bill to the tip total. The tip is $8.32.5. Add that together and then add your tax.
Oh. That gives you the 63.89.
That's what gives me the 63.89. And my tip amount, I was renaming the variable wrong. So the subtotal would be, so if I went through and I wanted to break this out, oh, we'll try to break this out so it's more explanatory here. So now when I run this, your tip amount is $8.32. Your subtotal before tax, 63.82, and then your after tax, 63.89. No, I believe I might have.
Look at the expected output.
Yep. I believe, let's see here. That's because I did the tax wrong. I added the tax wrong. I just added the tax. The tax is 8%. So I would have to take my subtotal. So we take the subtotal, and then we have to multiply the subtotal by the tax. And that's why I had the wrong answer there.
Tip total is spelled wrong. The seventh
Thank
string.
you.
Yeah.
It happens.
All right.
There we go. That's what I did. I did the tax calculation incorrect. Yes, you just got it in there. So one way you can take these to break this down.
That threw me.
So you could take these to break it down. So you could start thinking about, okay, I need my subtotal, so I could make a variable to track that. Get my tip totals, and then this right here could be tax amount. And don't worry about creating a lot of variables when you're just starting out. It helps you kind of visualize the problem. And as I take these pieces out, now this should still generate the same response. And now what I'm doing is I'm starting to break the pieces of math out. You could use that as a problem solving technique to step-by-step solve the problem. That's where I was confusing myself, as I was trying to shortcut and trying to put everything onto one line and then forgetting that we talked about the tip was a percent, but the tax was a percent as well. And I was treating it as a actual dollar amount. That was my mistake. Yeah. But I was trying to jam it all in one line, trying to go quick. And that's where sometimes when you're trying to go too quick, sometimes you outstep yourself.
I get it. Tip total. Can you leave this up for just like another minute?
Sure.
Tip total.
Hey DJ,
Build
Yes.
time.
what's the part that makes it that converts it into the two decimal points? Like the 68.13.
This part right here.
Okay, because I'm trying to type this in, but it's not, I don't know, it's not reading it right. I don't know what I'm doing.
What have you got going on? What are you typing in?
I feel like I have it the exact same way you do, but maybe not. So let's see.
So
Is it a
the
space in between it? Is that why it's not
that's a
working?
colon. That's a
Okay.
colon, but it's inside the curly brackets.
Inside the curly brackets.
Yeah. So it's right after the tip amount.
Hmm.
At this point, these parentheses aren't needed anymore. So that might, is that easier to read? Oh, now my line's not lined up. Right here.
So it's a colon,
Colon,
decimal
decimal
to
point,
left.
2F.
Times tip.
2F is in Foxtrot.
Okay.
Yes, this is definitely a place where PEMDAS comes in. And that's why if when you're first working on things, sometimes it's more simple, sometimes it's easier to grasp by taking each piece and stepping out the PEMDAS yourself first before trying to jam it into one line. Because it's a lot to jam into one line, basically. Because then you start dealing with a whole bunch of parentheses. You can do it, and you can do it with no other variables. It just starts looking confusing.
This really threw me. Like I'm still like pretty lost off this because tip total as the variable equals the bill times the tip.
Mm-hmm. And that's the dollar amount. So we print that out. That's the tip amount, which
Okay.
is $8.32.5.
Okay.
So we take that dollar amount and we have to add it back to the bill amount.
Bill. And then 68.13.
Oh, you know what I should do? I'm going to add these two F's in here just to work through these a little bit more. Now when we run it through, and that should break down, that kind of helps visualize the math.
Yeah, that helped.
And while you're working, this is a kind of a handy way to try to break down the problem. You're breaking it into the pieces. So the first thing I did when I was looking at it was by reading the problem. You have the arrow. You have the pre-tax total, the tax rate, which is a tax percentage, and the tip percentage. So that's your three variables here. So that's the first thing we put in.
Yeah.
And then it just comes down to they're explaining it right here. Apply a tip to the post-tax cost of the meal. But we got the right answer, and that's not the way we did it. because we added the tip before the tax. So if we were to follow it the other way, and we go, yes, Josh, I think it was I was focused on reading how the problem is when we should be looking at, so the tip total still stays the same, but the subtotal, so we'll go pre-tip equals, we'll change the tax amount. And this is where having a dynamic language helps, to where we take the bill and multiply it by the tax.
Yeah, this would have been the way that I would have
But
done that.
that's the way it's actually describing.
Okay. Because that's where I think I got thrown. For sure.
So yes, I was applying the tax before, I was applying the tip before the tax. So we go,
What's with the stars?
you'll see in a minute here.
Oh, I kind of think
Yeah, multiply.
This is, you'll find that this becomes a habit when you're console printing. We need a new tip amount, right? No, the tip amount's good. So our tip is the same, but our tax is different. Because just like you pointed out, and the instructions point out, that our tax is supposed to be applied before the tip is applied, that's the way we normally do things. We calculate the tip based off of the pre-tax total, correct?
Yep.
So I believe okay, which code would you like me to break down, Josh? What I went through and did here? Okay, so here I'm taking the tip total. I'm taking 55.50 multiplied by 0.15. 15% tip, which that turns into $8.32.5. This subtotal is incorrect. Because this is applying the tip. This is adding the bill and the tip total together, getting our 63.83. Which that's not what the question was looking for. It was looking the post-tax cost of the meal. So what we should have been doing was we should have been finding out what the tax amount was here before applying the tips. So this right here is where our tax is now $3.75 instead of the $4.31. Correct? But this is how they calculated it, was they added, even though the instruction says apply the tip to the post-tax cost, we got the same answer they did by adding the bill and the tip total together and then applying the tax, or then calculating the tax.
Yeah, the first way
So,
is the way I would have did that because everything there past that like started like
right,
really.
I believe this answer may be misleading because it feels like the tax is applied at the wrong time.
Yeah.
So the actual math, and yeah, I should have thought about what we really do at a restaurant. The actual math should have been apply the tip after you
The bill
apply
plus the
the
tax.
tax. Yes. Yes.
Total equals bill plus bill. Yeah. I don't really think that exercise was worded that great.
Well, it's worded right. It's just our expected output looks like it was different. I mean, with the top, yes, we did.
Yeah,
We
we're
did all
definitely all overthinking it.
overthinking. Okay. Do we want to take a 10-minute break and then
I'm for it. After that, I need it.
because yeah, then we could start diving into methods and stuff, and I'll explain a lot. So Josh, what the F does, I'm gonna do this I want to just go over this again just before I set you out on break. The F string, it's an
That's
interpolated string. So what I'm doing is I'm adding variables in the middle.
to keep it all
And
on the same line.
and this is the way I like doing it because it's reading all together instead of
Bunch of different lines.
I could also go oh, let me go like this. I'll
I
show
like
you
that.
the
I
other
like those
way.
interpolated strings a lot.
This one doesn't look as different, but if I went through and there's places where you can start falling into tricks where um this is just going to be wrong, but this in my preference, this kind of feels messy. And I forgot a comma. See, this is how reading the error goes. Whereas if you wanted, it just feels better to me rather than dealing with the commas and breaking things out. And there's more, there's more things you can do with formatting strings. Because there's also a dot format.
It's cleaner, and I think it's going to stop the next person from overthinking,
And
like what's actually going on.
it's more clear, yes. And
Yeah.
that just boils back to the point of we're writing code for other people to read. So
Yeah.
I'm going to pause the video or recording real quick. Where is that button? All right, so now we'll double check our code space. It is active.
I just had to reset mine. All right. Are we going in a
Oh, I should have.
two or are we still in one?
We're going to 2. Okay, here's another way that you can, if you drag it far to the right, if you grab your practice file, if you've made one, and drag it far to the right, you should get a silhouette that helps you with being able to split screen a lot easier.
Gotcha.
Okay, so now yes, this button right here. This is the one you're talking about, right, Dom? Oh, just for everybody's reference. There's a button right here that does the same thing. There are hotkeys, but with a web editor, sometimes that can get a bit tricky, and let's clear this out. Oh, that's another little piece too. You can just type clear to wipe out, to give yourself a clean slate if everything's just getting a little overloaded. So I know we briefly, well, we did talk about Boolean values. We're going to dive into a little bit of the expressions. They're kind of pretty quick. Does anybody have any questions on Booleans and the whole use cases behind those? We know Booleans could be true, false. But one thing we can use is we can use Boolean expressions or comparison operators, which we've all seen these before. Maybe not, we've seen equal to, not equal to, greater than or equal to. We've seen them displayed differently. Because in a lot of the symbols that you use in math, we just can't really easily represent on the keyboard. So the greater than, the less than, those make sense. Now, why would we use this for equal to?
Because we already use equals for variable assignment.
Yes. And that's something that, especially when I was new, I would forget a lot, and I'd get some interesting results in some of my comparisons, because your check at that point when you use a single equal sign is, it's not checking to see if it's equal, it's checking to see if you can assign it. So that can really mess your logic up when you're thinking about something different. So it's a fair warning for you. Voice of experience and all. Are not equal to is an exclamation point and an equal sign. Greater than is just like in regular math. Greater than or equal to is the greater than sign and an equal sign, because we don't have an easy way to just put the line underneath the greater than sign like you would see in traditional math. And then the inverse is the same is true about the less than. Any questions there? So the double exercise, or the double equals, like I said before, try to get in the habit of spelling print correctly and putting these in print blocks. Because when you're outside of Jupyter notebooks, it's not going to work very well. So if you tried it inside this practice file we were talking about, then it would give you an error. This is assigning this variable to whatever the result of this comparison is. That's kind of building up so that you can use these. So you would use this variable for maybe a valid check or various different range checks or stuff like that. That's where you usually use a lot of these comparisons and whatnot. I mean, it's all fairly straightforward. Does anybody have any questions about the use of the comparison operators and that sort of thing?
Could you just like I'm gonna be straight up. Can you just dumb it down a little bit? I mean, I know it's already simple enough, but like just like with the 23 is equal to 32. How like I guess
It's
what is
this
that?
is okay, so with these comparisons, just mentally add the word is. So is 23 equal to 32?
Okay.
And that's a way that you can kind of help structure this into a sentence, because on the same token, you can go, if I go 20, 30, 23 is less than 32, is 23 less than
And
32?
then that's where you would assign the Boolean being that that's a true statement.
Yes. Where did I?
Okay.
Interesting. There we go. Oh, I hit a character. So yeah, if you type stuff here and then you press the play button, it's not going to work. Okay. So if I clear this out, what I did was I accidentally hit the keyboard before. Now it didn't run because I accidentally hit the keyboard, and as my hand was going to the enter key, I hit these two characters. Because when you're hitting the play button, it's
The code.
actually running this command. So if you accidentally have a key in there and then you hit this command, it's not going to work because it doesn't make any sense.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's just,
I'm sorry. I was just reading what the chat was saying because Marcellus said that the code gives you the Boolean, you don't assign it. So technically, by putting in that statement, 23 is less than 32, you wouldn't need to assign a Boolean to it.
no, it becomes by using a comparison operator, it becomes a Boolean expression because there's only,
Okay, I said it wrong then. Okay,
yeah, it's wherever you use these, you're never going to get a different answer other than it's either true or false.
understood.
Yeah.
Understood. I didn't know if you needed to assign it or it already knew it.
You can. If you
It wouldn't hurt, but I mean, technically, it already knows it.
Yeah, you could if you plan on using that result for something else, you would want to store it somewhere so that you can continue working with it.
Okay.
So, okay. Okay, so Python has something called membership checks. And in fact, you have an in operator and a not in operator. It one of the nice things about Python is it reads kind of like plain English. So actually, we're just going to use their example because they're using a list here, and I know we haven't covered lists, but this, as you can see, this is a list of numbers. And what this is, it's assigning this list of numbers to this as St. Louis blizzard years. And then we're looking for another Boolean. So this is just like the comparison operator where our result is going to be a Boolean, but we're asking the question, is 2017 in St. Louis blizzard years? And that's a true or false answer. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Same is true with not in. Yes, it's referencing whatever. I could easily do. I could actually put the list in. Oh, I hate that it's not word wrapping. Okay. This is what happens when you're using a code editor that's not set up the way you like it. Oh, and notice how this didn't give me any, this gave me no output, right? Down here, I ran the file, I got nothing. But I also didn't get an error. Does anybody know why?
That means because it's an actual true statement.
Well, it wouldn't matter if it's true or false in this case. There's something I forgot to put in there that I've been kind of saying to do all along here, and then I didn't do it. Yes,
You didn't put it. Yeah.
a print statement. Because I didn't tell it what to do with that. And now you get, there was no error in the code, so I didn't get any output that there was something wrong. So there was nothing wrong with the code, but it did exactly what I told it to. Yeah, I didn't really tell it to tell me anything. Sometimes think about this like you're talking to a toddler. Or your dog.
So,
Go ahead.
so in the example, right, there's no print statement, right? It's just 2017 and
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis bird. So there's no print statement, but it still answers the question, still prints out the true Boolean.
Because that's Jupyter Notebooks. And this is
Oh, okay.
where Jupyter Notebooks can give you bad habits. So my suggestion is when you're testing stuff, when you're trying things out inside Jupyter Notebooks, add a print statement. And it works. Correct. In any other, when you're not, Jupyter Notebooks is kind of like it's an example tool. It's not for building. It's not for building out the software that you, or any of the programs that you want to do. It's for playing with things and that sort of thing. But when we're over here in an actual Python file, we don't have that functionality because you don't want every variable you create to get printed out, especially if you're doing a lot of calculations or a bunch of stuff that way. Okay, any questions about the in, not in? Okay, so we also have logical operators and, or, and not. And you can join these. This is where it starts getting into a little bit of logic from algebra or math and that sort of thing, where you start combining different Boolean values. So if we go print 32 is greater than 23 and 3 equals 3, we get our true. But if we change that, that becomes false because both sides need to be true for an and to be true. And that's what this is saying here. Checks if two statements are both true. So like a use case might be, you've got a password checker and it's gotta be 8 characters, and it's gotta be at least 8, or yeah, it's gotta be more than 8 characters long, but less than 32 characters long. You can put that right in here. It would kind of look like something like this. I'm just gonna put a number in here. Greater than 8. Does that help? Any questions with that? Now, with or, only one of them needs to be true. So if we change this to 20, this becomes false. But if we change this to or, it becomes true because the left side's true, but the right side's false. That clear? Any questions? Okay. And then the not is used outside of here.
Takes the value of the Boolean statement.
So our previous statement was true, correct? Now when I run it, it's false. Because I took whatever this statement was.
Whatever it was going to give you, now that you put not in there, it's going to give you the opposite of it.
Exactly. Yes. Yep, and here's some more examples of using the in, checking if 4 is not equal to 5, and then they negate it. So 4 is obviously not equal to 5, which makes that true, but they negated it with a not, which gives the answer, which makes it a false. Any questions on those?
Yeah, and the logic operators are specifically for Boolean specific code.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, this is Boolean. Do they call this? A lot of times you'll see it called Boolean logic. It kind of helps drive it home that these are comparisons between two Boolean statements. So you're taking and combining, whether it's your membership checks, because those result in a true or false, or your operators, your comparison operators, because those result in true or false. That's where these are usually combined with, so that you can chain a more complicated comparison together. Any questions? Yes, Boolean logic is used a lot in SQL as well. Boolean logic is very, very simple. It's simple for the computer to be able to process. Okay, so here's a okay, let's check this out here. Okay, so this covers truthy statements. This one can be a little bit tricky because it's not a complete Boolean expression. So something that's truthy is a value that's not 0, false, or none. So it's just, yeah, it's not false. It can tell you that much, basically. I know that's kind of vague. I tend I tend to I think it's just best practice to try to avoid incomplete statements. Because saying this in English, it makes sense. But this 2014 is by itself. So you might actually mean this right here, 2014 in St. Louis blizzard years. But that's not actually what this is saying. So the reason why this evaluates as true is because 2014 is not equal to 0, it's not equal to none, and it's not equal to false. You see how that's confusing? Any questions on that one? Because that is a kind of a tricky one right there. Because by speaking it, you would say it the way that it looks on top, but the computer's not going to process it the way that you expect it to. When you're doing comparisons, you always want to specifically specify, and you'll see that where I did this here, where I typed password on both sides of the OR. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
See the difference here? This is true and this is false.
Okay.
And the main reason why is because this 2014, this and separates two statements. But what does 2014 mean on its own? It's just a number. It's an integer. And that integer is not equal to 0. It's not false. It's not equal to none. And it's not an empty string or an empty collection or list. There's data there. It's the number 2014. So it's true. And the number 2018 is inside this list. So the entire thing evaluates as true. And that's where you kind of get those false positive things. So this is where being explicit is important. Is you should be able to, let's break it down this way. So we'll go, oh, I better. Do I still have that? Yes. So if I go, my first is 2014 in years. And then my second is 2018 in years. And now I print this is how it's evaluating it. Oops. Does that help clarify things? Anybody got questions on that? That's one of the keys, is trying to break the things into pieces, and a lot of times these can get the and or can start making things a bit tricky, because if you try to read it too much like English, it'll make sense as an English statement, but it's not 100% like, it's not used 100% the same way. That's why we call it a logical operator. And that's why, yeah. Okay. So I take it there's no questions, or anybody have
I just got a
anything? Go
I got a
ahead,
quick
man.
random question. Is there like a shortcut key? Like, let's say if you're at the beginning of a variable, like with print, is there like a shortcut key to like you do like a the what comma, not comma, the half moon? Yeah, is there like a way to get to the end without having to scroll to the mouse all the way all the time, like or go down and do
Oh,
like a quick?
there's a bunch of shortcut keys, and
Oh, okay,
yeah, you could hit end on your keyboard. There is a doc out there. There's a PDF. I don't remember where the link is offhand, but there is a PDF that has like all of the common shortcut keys for VS Code. From this interface, I don't know if you'll be able to find them. But um a word of caution with using regular VS Code shortcut keys or hotkeys inside a web editor is sometimes those are the same shortcut keys for your web browser. And a lot of times your web browser will take precedence and it'll do something different. Okay.
okay.
So they may work, but it don't be surprised if it does things you don't expect. I guess that's the best thing I could say there. All right. We're at 10 minutes after. How about we take another break? And we'll be back by 20 after. How's that sound for everybody?
Sounds good.
Okay. All right. So we did cover a little bit about if statements, and these concepts kind of build up on each other and whatnot. The Booleans kind of feed into if statements. I'm gonna comment out some of these. That hotkey works. The comment the line. That's control slash, the slash with the question mark on it. Your cursor can be anywhere on that line, and you just hit the control slash and it'll throw a comment in front of it. And if you hit it again, it just uncomments it. It's probably one of the most used shortcuts that I use. All right. So we've got if statements, and then we have this little note if, elif, and else statements. We're going to go through these kind of simple. I believe we saw this one earlier, right? The temperature if statement. We believe we saw that yesterday. So from a quick look at this, can anybody tell me how this is going to work?
Yeah, if the temperature is less than 32 degrees, you're gonna print that first print statement, right below that. If it is above that, it's gonna go to the else statement and excuse me, else, sorry, else statement and print that out.
Sorry, I didn't mean yesterday. I meant Monday. I apologize there. Yes,
Yeah.
that's right. And because we've already set the temperature to 70, we set it to something inside the program, then this will always print like Marcellus.
Yes.
Yes, sorry. Like Marcellus was saying that, was it you, Marcellus? Oh, it was Dom. I apologize. I've got the messages all crunched together. But like Dom was saying, it's going to print, there's probably not going to be snow. You can go through and you can you can change the value and continue to get your two different responses. Now, so how would you handle a negative Marcellus is asking how you would handle negative temperatures. An integer, a negative number is still an integer. Does that make sense? Everybody see that? It's still less than 32, correct? The thing with integers inside Python, I believe they don't have an actual cap. I believe their numbers will roll over. So there's an issue there if the number rolls over instead of runs out of the limit. In a lot of your statically typed languages, they will have a threshold. The number can be so big negative or so far negative and so far positive. And when it hits those ends, you need to use a different data type. In Python, that's not a case. We don't have a multitude of different types of integers. The trade-off on that is it doesn't infinitely go. Eventually it'll wrap around, if I'm not mistaken. I'll double check that, but I believe that's a trade-off that you have to think about with Python. The likelihood that you're going to run into that is very, 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 very slim because to get an example, there we go. $4,300 digits. So it doesn't roll over. Or does it roll over? I believe there was a rollover problem there. But regardless, you're talking about the likelihood you're going to run out of numbers is extremely low. Yeah, I'm used to seeing an actual number range, but I've been dealing with other things. All right. So yeah, your integers can be signed, so they can go into the negatives. I don't believe we actually talked about that on Monday, did we? We didn't actually talk about adding positive or negative or declaring negative integers, but it's still treated under the same rules. Okay. Somebody want to take a shot at this one? I know there's a bunch of extra stuff in here.
It would still go to that else statement, wouldn't it? Because your temperature is 70. So that first if statement still, if it's below 32, and then it also goes into another if statement that says if it's below 10, to print. Oh, look, let's see here. There's two if statements, but they both. I'm sorry. The one below it still belongs to that top if statement.
There we go. That's a key piece from yesterday. Okay, so yes, this right here is part of the same code block. So if this is false, where are we going?
So it's going to try the elf, and then since that is not true, it's going to go to else.
Yeah, they kind of pronounce that LF because it's short for else if. In a lot of languages, a lot of languages separate that out into two different words. So you would have else and then space if and iterate that way. This is just one of the Python nuances that this is else if. Okay, so we check this. So continue on. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you there.
All right, you're good. So 70 is still not below 55, so it's gonna move to the next one, which would be else, which would should print out.
Right. And your else is your catch everything. Now I've got a question. Can you do multiple elifs in syntax? Answer to that is yes. And you can continuously just go greater than 60. Now, I'm doing something that logically doesn't make sense, and that's, or no, no, there's a little bit of a gap there, I think. There we go. Yeah, there's this gap here between 60 and 55 that could fall into the else. And it's one of the things, yes, this will run. And now we've got test because we kind of flipped the direction we were going. And as a note, this is bad practice. Okay. Because this goes back to trying to be consistent. And if you're checking for things to be less than, there's usually a way that you can try to figure out a better place to put this. Maybe this is where it should fall into the else and something else should be above that, or this is where when you start flipping signs, especially the greater than and less than sign, if you're reading that quick, that could kind of mesh together, right? You could easily, a lot of times when you see code like that, um, a lot of times you look at it and you're like, did they actually put the wrong sign in there? Did they mean that? Did they mean less than or something like that? Because um, generally you want to try to keep your comparison stepping in the same way. So you can kind of read it through logically. Does that make sense? Yeah, you could add.
Well, wouldn't you have to do like less than equal to for like dumb statement?
In this case, yes. If you want to, if we did a less than equal to, that would catch it. There's there's a couple different yes, there's a couple different ways that people might go about trying to capture that. You could do less than equal, or you could bump the number down one. Nope, bump it up one. There, yeah. So there's a couple different ways people like to try to deal with that. Using the less than equal kind of makes it easier so you can look at the number and it makes more sense. But you will probably run into people that will use just the single signed operator and a down stepped number. And sometimes that kind of thought comes from knowing another programming language that doesn't support like greater than equal to and less than equal to. So sometimes that's like a habit from somebody knowing a different language that didn't have as many operators. Um, and obviously that comes down to learn the language and try to use the other pieces. And just like Dom said, try to keep it simple because then you can read this and say, okay, I intend on hitting the temperature 70. Any questions there? And the simplicity is better. That runs all the way across your program. You try to make it simple to read and try to keep the logic as simple as you can, because when you start trying to complicate things and try to chain things together, the more things you try to chain together, the more likely you are to run into bugs that are more difficult to trace out and that sort of thing. Like when we started trying to compile all the math on one line, you start kind of jumbling this stuff up, and if you forget to set one set of parentheses in here, you all of a sudden you have a different answer and that sort of thing. Here's your negative example. I believe this is, yep, we're just, not only can you have multiple elif statements, you can nest the statements. So if you want to, let's see here. Let's see how much there we go. So now that we're hitting the true here, and then we hit the false here, so we execute this. So one key piece about this is this line, if you're in this block, is always going to be executed. But this is the conditionally executed one inside this particular block right here. Does that make sense? Any questions on that?
It makes sense. It's like that. So like the print statement is dangerously cold outside. It's almost like a child of that if temperature less than 10, but I guess the child of the overall if statement is that print is literally freezing outside. That
Yes.
sound about right? Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So only if we have this extra condition we decided to add, it's indented and it's a nested if, which belongs to the first condition. So both of these have to evaluate to true to run this statement. But if this one is the only one that's true, it's still going to run this statement. And that's where the indentation comes in again, where we'll run into an error. Let's see here. Yes, so this is gonna. So now by taking that out and moving this over here, that's where the indentation comes in. This pass basically says do nothing. So this is a way we would, if we were doing something like templating where you want an if statement, but you don't know what you want it to do yet, you could put your condition like, I know I want to do something here, but I don't quite know yet. So I'm going to just put a pass so it just steps through it. So I can check this outside piece or whatnot. And if I bump this in, leave, yeah, that's still not going to run, right? No. It's bad. It's bad code to leave that pass in there, though. Any questions there? Like we said, the else catches everything else. And a lot of, when you start dealing with multiple conditions, you want to be deliberate about what you're checking for and that sort of thing. You want to you definitely want to test it out and make sure that, what you're putting into code is what you really intend on. It's a lot of times it's easy to get wrapped up in trying to build out everything. And I've done it many times where I've flipped the signs unintentionally and just the worst problem with that is when you're sitting there and you're staring at it, and you're like, what is wrong with this? And you see how small that character it is, but you're looking at it and it's a very, very small thing, but it's never going to give you an error because the code's not wrong. It's just not doing what you had intended on doing. Any Does that make sense? Any questions there? Okay. We're gonna start covering into the basics of functions, but we'll probably end up picking up the rest of it tomorrow. Um, we've got about 20 minutes left, I believe. Um, Functions, we we looked at the way the methods were, like the upper, the lower, the capitalize, and those pieces of the string. And those belonged into the string stuff. Right here, we're using the capitalize method. And another a major indicator that it's a method or a function is we've got the parentheses following it. That's a good that's a good way to when you're looking at these things that does something, that this is going to do something related to this variable. Argument versus parameters when we're defining functions. We'll get into that a little bit later. Thanks, Laramie. Okay, well, that's where we're here. Okay, so let me make sure I've got the terminology right. Okay, so Laramie mentioned arguments versus parameters. So what that means is this right here, this is a function definition. Whoa, this is a function definition. Now you can see this is the definition, and we have that colon just like we did in the if. And I don't know if I remembered to cover the importance of that, but make sure after each one of these statements, they have the colon before the indentation. And that's extremely important. That means that what follows this belongs to this condition. And the same is true about this colon with this function here. Now I'm going to use that pass again. And this is like a concept called building a stub, where this is a function stub that we plan on giving it functionality later. I can run this. It's not going to do anything, but it's also not going to give me any errors. So these are the parameters. Num1 and num2 are the parameters that our total sum function takes. Any questions there? Go ahead, Marcel. I see a hand.
So,
Here we go.
I feel like I'm kind of not understanding the function. Like, what is the point of a function? Can you kind of describe it? I understand that it does something for you, But like what is it? Can you kind of put it
So
into different
the
terms?
way it's easier to deal with code in small pieces, right?
Yeah, I got you.
So total sum is it's a common example because it's a really fast and easy um function to build. And yes, Laramie is exactly correct. This is a reusable block of code to where we can use this total sum in multiple places. Um, total sum it it, it doesn't make sense because we have a plus operator and we could just use the plus key and that basically, it solves the problem without a bunch of extra typing. But if we I know we haven't covered lists or anything like that, but if instead of putting two integers in here, we put a list, which could be any number of numbers, then we could build this function to calculate all of those numbers. Is that a little helpful?
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So, if I'm understanding it correctly, let's say, for example, the restaurant exercise that we did in the last block.
Hmm.
If I wanted to kind of use a function or to define a function to take an integer and like convert it to a percentage or something like that, would that be a use case for it, or am I overthinking it?
You could do it that way, or you could take that whole logic block and build it into a function and run the same function for each one of those examples.
I got you. Okay.
So it's something that one of the core principles about programming is do not repeat yourself. So if you find yourself writing the same blocks of code over and over and over again, that's when you stop and think is like, okay, I'm copy and pasting and changing numbers. Is there something else I can do? And the answer to that is usually doing some sort of method or function because then you wrote the logic once. So if there's a problem, you only go to one spot to look for that problem, right?
Yeah, that definitely explains it for me. I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries. And I know the sum function it's a low hanging fruit, but it's just enough to kind of demonstrate this is what's going on. So sum itself is another function. And we better change this back. Just for the record, using the list is going to you doing the list properly is going to do things that we're not going to cover for a few more lessons. So I don't want to throw that into there because then the code's just going to kind of. So what we're going to do is sum is a function that oh, this is returning a tuple. Why are we doing? How about we just there we go. So now what I'm doing here is we have the parameters num1 and num2. And we need these two numbers to be able to do something. We need to do something with them. So I'm going to break this down a little bit easier. So all of the logic, this addition function, this total sum function, is handled inside here. So if we wanted to add more numbers and where you specified each number in a row, we could just continue to add to it and expand upon that. That's just focused on this particular function. This return, it means that when we run this function, we want it to send something back to whatever's calling it. So what I would do, is I would call it here. Now, because it returns whatever this result is, which happens to be num1 plus num2, it's going to return it. And what do you think this is going to do?
It just adds those numbers that you put in as arguments.
Okay, so if I go like this, let me do this. What is that going to do? What am I going to see from that? Now, keep in mind, I'm not in,
It should be an error message because you didn't tell it to print anything.
how is that an actual error?
So in your function, I don't see anywhere where it tells it to print, and then you called the function, but you didn't tell it to print out. Oh, I guess the return would serve as the print.
Well, is it going to cause an error though? You're on the right track, but is it going to cause an error?
Okay. I guess no error, but I'm interested. I guess I should run it to see what it actually returns.
You're right, no error. It is returning something, but you were on the right track because I commented out the print. I didn't tell it to do anything with it. And that's our difference is if we were using Jupyter notebooks, you would get an answer. And that's why I kind of like doing this example. Yes, I gave it the data for num1 and num2, which there's nothing wrong with that data. It will add, it'll return a result, but we didn't do anything with the result. So yes, you were 100%. I did not call the print function. I commented out the print function. So it got its result, but it did exactly what I told it to. Do nothing with this after you're done with it, right?
Yeah.
And that's the habit that I want to try to keep you mindful of when you're using the tools over here versus what you're doing in actual code here. And yes, this is the difference between right here. The num1 and num2 are parameters, and Laramie is 100% correct. 5 and 6 are arguments. So when you actually call the function, what you give it is an argument. They're closely related, but they're different when you're talking about them. Is when you're talking about I'm using arguments, then I'm assuming that you were invoking a function that you've already declared. Is that definition? Anybody? Yeah, is that definition clear? Anybody need help with that or no?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I'll go after you.
Yeah, it makes sense to me because I always looked at parameters as placeholders, and an argument is the actual information you need to pass to that function for it to act upon whatever that function is doing.
That's a great way to think about it. As long as you can make sure that you separate those in your head, they're not interchangeable. You'll hear people interchange them, but they're not interchangeable. And Derek?
Yeah, so to tell you the truth, I'm having like a real hard time like understanding this function part. And I know we're to the end of this class. I was just gonna ask if like when we start tomorrow, could we go over this like kind of briefly and like just dumb it down a little bit more for me so I can like get the full understanding like I did the other block?
Yeah, without a doubt. And what I'll do is I'll
Because
we'll
I'm gonna
work on a
read
better
through.
example. We'll work on a better example that's not something that is just something that doesn't make sense. Why would you make this function, right?
Yeah, a little bit. And then also I'm gonna read through a little bit more of like the explanation so I get kind of an understanding. And I think when you dumb it down and show it to me, I think it'll finally sink in then because it did with the other block. This was just like a little bit much for me.
Yeah, we're stepping in as we step into functions, things start feeling a little bit more complicated because um you haven't gotten into the practice of where you'd see where a function would be useful. I mean, naturally, you
That's
see the
probably
print function is useful because that's how you get output out, but you don't have
totally.
to build that. So I completely get you. And yeah, we'll definitely we'll work through a better use case that isn't something we could solve on one line. I think that's one of the other problems with using such these simple functions like this are great because it shows you how to build the function, but it doesn't really hit you that point of why am I building this function, right?
Yeah, a little bit for sure.
I get that. Yeah. I'm gonna stop the recording now. Any more questions? Okay, I'm gonna stop it now.